Today, we are looking at the incredible true story of John and Anne Darwin, who you probably know as the Canoe Man.
Right, a 5-year deception built on, well, lies, spousal coercion, and just spectacular emotional betrayal.
And our mission today is to really unpack that timeline, to try and understand the bizarre logic of the couple, and most importantly, explore that critical moment where a single digital photograph just brought the whole thing crashing down.
This whole story is just a perfect case study in modern criminal failure. I mean, the Darwins were actually brilliant at making a physical person disappear.
Oh, absolutely. They convinced everyone, their friends, their family, and crucially, their two adult sons, that John had tragically drowned at sea.
But the sources make it so clear that this really sophisticated physical act was just completely undone by a total lack of digital foresight.
Exactly. They committed this crime right at the moment the internet was becoming permanently searchable, and they didn't grasp that.
So their capture wasn't about old school police work at all.
Not really, no. It came down to a simple Google image search by a member of the public who just thought something was off.
And the key players in this whole drama, of course, John Darwin, the former teacher who plotted it, and Anne Darwin, the woman who had to play the grief-stricken canoe widow for half a decade.
So the plan was set. But the motivation?
Yeah.
It was purely financial.
Oh, completely. John Darwin wasn't looking for some kind of new life or freedom. He was just being crushed by debt. How bad was it when they hatched this whole thing?
It was catastrophic. John had racked up just a staggering debt. The sources put it at around 700,000 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, and this wasn't, small-time credit card stuff. This was from a whole series of failed, pretty grandiose property ventures. He was always chasing that one big win that just never happened.
So the staging of the disappearance, it had to be dramatic enough to guarantee a big insurance payout.
hmm On March 21st, 2002, he takes his red canoe, which was named Orca, of all things, out near Seaton, Carew, and just vanishes.
And the world, as far as it knew, reacted as if it were a real tragedy.
Immediately. They found his paddle almost right away, and a few weeks later, the shattered wreckage of the canoe washed up. All signs pointed to a fatal accident.
And by April 2003, enough time had passed. John was legally declared dead.
Right, via an open verdict at an inquest. And that declaration was the key. It was the mechanism that allowed Anne to collect over £500,000 in life insurance and pension funds.
And this is where Anne's performance, her initial role, was just so critical to the whole thing.
Absolutely. She had to be the distraught widow. She made appeals to local papers. She comforted her two sons, Mark and Anthony, who were genuinely convinced their father was gone. That grief she showed everyone really cemented the lie.
It's staggering to think about just the logistics of this. Disappearing was only step one. For the next 3 years, from 2003 to 2006, John wasn't gone. He was hiding literally next door.
That's the most bizarre detail in all the source material. He was in a bedsit that they owned, right next to the family home.
And the access point is the thing that always gets me.
It's incredible. A hole in the wall hidden behind a wardrobe with a false back. He just led this strange, almost underground existence for years while Anne was living the life of a widow just a few feet away.
And the sources say he'd only come out when the coast was clear, often disguised, right? A beard, a hat.
Yeah, to avoid neighbors, or worse, his own sons if they decided to visit unexpectedly. It speaks volumes about the marital dynamic. The sources really analyzed this, suggesting John had traits of narcissistic personality disorder.
You can see it in the grandiosity of the plot itself, faking your own death.
And the delusion that they would then go on to build this ecotourism empire in Panama. It's a clear pattern.
But let's talk about Anne's role. She kept this lie going for years. At trial, her defense was marital coercion. Was there enough evidence to really back that up?
Well, she consistently said she felt completely controlled, that for their whole marriage, John would belittle her, chip away at her self-esteem, making her believe she couldn't cope on her own.
And he told her the plan was only for a few weeks?
That was the initial pitch, yeah. Just long enough to sort the money out. But, of course, the whole thing just spiraled.
So if the jury heard all this, why did they reject the coercion defense? Was it just the sheer length of time, 5 years, that made it unbelievable?
That's exactly it. The prosecution argued that, okay, maybe she was pushed into it at first.
Yeah.
But she had so many opportunities over 5 years to stop it, especially once the money was in the bank.
She was actively involved,
Yeah.
moving money, applying for passports.
Precisely. She was relocating abroad. The jury felt that her active, sustained participation showed she was, as the prosecution put it, in it together with him. She was convicted on all charges.
And it's tragic when you realize she felt she was choosing her husband over her own sons, Mark and Anthony.
Yeah, she rationalized it by thinking her self-esteem was too low to leave him, and because her sons were adults and didn't visit all the time, she thought the damage was somehow manageable.
A decision with immense costs, which we'll get to.
Definitely. But her story at trial was of a woman who felt she just lacked the courage to stand up to him, even for her own kids.
So by 2006, the hiding next door plan had run its course. They had the money, John had a new identity as John Jones, and it was time for the great escape.
And they chose Panama. The irony here is it's almost a tragic comedy. They're escaping this massive fraud to go build an ecotourism resort specializing in...
Adventure canoeing, of course.
Of course. So Anne sells up, tells her son she's starting a new life alone, and moves out to join him.
And this is the moment. This is where the digital world smashes right into their analog plan. In July 2006, they pose for a picture.
The critical error. A simple photograph with a property agent in Panama, just a smiling picture of the happy couple, which then gets posted online.
On some kind of realtor website, probably.
Right. And that single act of digital self-documentation would unravel 5 years of these meticulous lies.
They must have felt so safe thousands of miles away. But then John panicked. He needed to sort out his visa to stay in Panama permanently.
Yeah, he clearly underestimated the complexity of living under a fake name. So he returns to the UK in December 2007, and he walks into a police station.
Claiming total amnesia.
Total amnesia dating back to 2000. He genuinely believed the system would just accept his story, that he could use old, analog police reporting to solve a problem that his new digital life had created.
But the world had changed. In 2007, Google Images was a powerful tool. So how did the truth come out so fast after he reappeared?
It was just the speed of information. Some unnamed person who knew Anne had moved to Panama and was suspicious just typed 3 words into Google Images. John, Anne, and Panama.
And there they were.
There they were. No private investigator, no wiretaps, just a simple search query that produced this photo of them smiling tanned in a Panama real estate office.
Which completely destroyed John's amnesia story and Anne's story of being a grieving widow.
The irony is just profound. They never once thought to check their own digital footprint. They were brilliant at disappearing off the physical map, but they totally failed to realize the digital map was permanent and searchable.
John was arrested at his son's house, right? During that first awkward reunion.
Yes, and Anne was arrested just days later when she flew back from Panama.
The emotional fallout for the sons must have been catastrophic. I mean, to believe your father is dead for 5 years, then find out both your parents lied to you.
The sources describe it as complete emotional devastation. They had no idea. They publicly disowned both parents immediately. Mark actually testified against his mother at trial, calling her a hideous lying bitch.
Wow.
The betrayal from Anne, the mother, seemed to hit them even harder than the betrayal from John, who they already saw as reckless.
So let's turn to the legal consequences. They were both jailed in 2008. But what's really fascinating is how the state went after the money they made using the Proceeds of Crime Act, or POCA.
Right. POCA is designed to be draconian. It lets the state go after any assets from a crime. And they enforced it rigorously against Anne because she was the one who actually held the insurance money.
So she was forced to repay over £500,000.
Yes, mostly by selling off properties in her name. It sent a clear signal that for her, the crime absolutely did not pay.
But the sources noted a difference with John. As of 2014, he'd only paid back a tiny fraction, like $121. Why was that?
It was about where the money was.
Yeah.
Anne had the liquid assets, so it was easy to enforce against her. John had fewer tangible assets when he was arrested, but, and this is important, he was later ordered to surrender an additional £40,000 from his legitimate pensions when they matured.
So the state made sure that even his legitimate funds were seized.
Exactly. But despite all this, Anne did find a path to reconciliation. She actually credits therapy in prison with giving her the courage to finally stand up to John. She even initiated their divorce while they were both locked up.
That's a huge character development.
It's the most significant in the whole saga. After 37 years, it took prison for her to realize she could make her own decisions. And her son Mark was the first to reach out, writing her a letter in 2008.
So where are they now?
They're living totally different lives. Anne is fully reconciled with her sons. She lives near York, works for the RSPCA. She's found real independence.
And John?
John remarried and moved to Manila in the Philippines. Reports say he lives on his UK pension and sells, of all things, underwear at a market stall.
So what's the big takeaway here? The Canoe Man case is just this perfect, tragic example of how permanent the digital world is.
It is. This whole scam was undone by a technology, Google Images, that had only really launched a few months before he disappeared.
That lack of foresight was their single point of failure.
Absolutely. Back then, they said the average UK adult was on over 400 databases. They were caught by searching just one of them. Imagine what that number is today.
The old school vanishing act is basically impossible now. Every transaction, every GPS ping, every photo you're tagged in leaves a permanent trace.
The Darwins just failed to see that transition from an analog world to a permanently searchable digital one. The lesson is, if you want to vanish today, you don't just burn your passport. You have to erase every piece of data you've ever created.
Which is almost impossible. And that brings us to our final thought for you to think about. Considering the massive increase in surveillance, biometric, social networking since 2007, what steps would a person even need to take today to truly vanish without a single digital breadcrumb?
And if that's truly unachievable, does disappearance as we once knew it even exist anymore?
Think about that the next time you tag yourself in a photo. That's all the time we have for this deep dive.